I'm sure many of you can think back to some of your school days, whether it's high school or college, about the games you used to play. For me, in college, I remember two that stood out, two special games that stuck with me. The first is called Extreme Spoons. If you have not played this game, you're missing out on life. Now, I don't have enough time to explain how all of spoons works, but basically it's that the first person that gets 4 matching cards slyly picks one of the spoons in front of them, signifying to others around the table that they too can grab a spoon. And when everyone has grabbed a spoon except for one person, that person who didn't get the spoon is then out of the game. But in Extreme Spoons, you hide the spoons. And so once they get 4 cards, that person sets off running to look for the spoons. I must tell you, there were times that we had to call the ambulance, a few, because of people going through broken windows, bodies through doors. So it's a great game to play despite the concerns that might happen. But if you haven't played it, you're missing out. It's the best. The other game, which I searched all over for a name, and the only thing I could come up with on the internet was Dropped in the Sticks. I must admit, I never played this game. I was not the most intelligent in college, but at least I thought that I had more common sense than most. In Dropped in the Sticks, a group of students will pile into a car blindfolded without phones. They'd be driven out in the middle of nowhere at night in a cornfield, in the back roads, or unfamiliar neighborhoods. And once they have made it to their destination, they would take the blindfolds off, and it was up to them to get back to the college campus on foot. And the first team that did that would win. Now, remember, I went to college in Adrian, Michigan. There is nothing around there but cornfields and farms. And again, I had more common sense not to risk my life in this game. But it was fascinating to hear the responses of the many students on this journey. It no longer became a game to win, but fear overtook them and they went into survival mode. Panic ensued, excitement waned, and questions and doubt began to fill their minds. What am I doing? Do I trust these random people that are with me? How will I get back? Am I safe? And there became temptations to call it quit and just wait until the light of the early morning to figure out where they were. It wasn't about winning, it was about surviving. Jesus is playing a game. And while it's extreme, much like spoons, it's not as fun. Instead, Jesus is playing a game of dropped in the sticks. Playing with him is the Holy Spirit, leading him out into the wilderness for 40 days into an unknown place. And in these days, Jesus has fasted and prayed for clarity and to become who it is God is preparing him to be. And some of us know that old school fasting. You become famished. You become tired. You become weak. Jesus is living on prayer alone in the wilderness. And at the end of his 40 days, the text says that the devil, the Satan, the accuser, the diabolical one, as translators have translated the name, comes to his midst. And in these moments, Jesus is confronted by questions and desires, many of which would definitely break his spirit as Jesus is now in survival mode. What am I to do? Who am I to trust? Where am I to go? But Jesus is wise. I like to think that Jesus is intelligent and has common sense. And he puts his trust and loyalty into God. At first glance, the devil's temptation seemed quite reasonable. If Jesus could turn stone into bread and avoid starving, why not? Why risk dying in the wilderness and end everything before it begins? Imagine the good Jesus could have done with authority over the kingdom of the earth. If anyone could handle that kind of power, surely it was Jesus. It would have instantly captured the attention and matched the kind of triumphant Messiah that many expect him to be. After 40 days in the wilderness, exposed to hunger and harsh weather and danger, the offer of safety and invulnerability would have been compelling. No fear, no pain, no weakness. What a powerful and fearless leader he could have become. To state the Reverend Caroline Dean, there is one other reason that these proposals of the devil sound reasonable. They're reasonable because they are so familiar, because we orient our lives around these things. Think about it. Food, sleep, physical needs are the foundation of wellness and wholeness. We spend a lot of our energy around these basic needs and we take them for granted. Hot meals, showers, physical comforts. And these things are obviously necessary, but at times we have taken these needs, to extremes, to wants. We cushion our lives with material comforts and addictions. And as we walk into Lent, we walk into this season realizing all of those things we clung to, all those desires we took to the extreme, all those fleshly behaviors we said we could not live without. We come to this season realizing they won't always be there for us, but God will. In every moment of our lives, whether we are in the sticks, in the city, in the desert, our God comes to us in full force, reminding us those things we put our trust in before will fade away, but our God, the living Spirit, walks with us, journeys with us, step by step by step by step. And during Lent, we are reminded of our mortality. And God reminds us we cannot do this alone without God, for God is our strength. And so when the little devils come to us and accuse us and consume us, our answer, like Christ, is to be loyal to God. It was Barbara Brown Taylor who wrote, "It would be a mistake for me to try to describe your wilderness exam. Only you can do that. Because only you know the devils that have your number and know how to bribe you. All I know for sure is that a voluntary trip to the desert this Lent is a great way to practice getting free of those devils. Not only because it is where you lose your appetite for things that cannot save you, but because it is where you learn to trust the Spirit that led you there to lead you out again, ready to worship the Lord your God and no other for the rest of your days. Our wilderness exam reminds us of who and whose we are. Especially when we choose to push away and be freed from the things that are tied not of God. So maybe in this season right now, in these moments, you are wondering who God is. You're wondering, can you even choose God over your temptations? Can you trust God in this game called life? Maybe you are in a season wondering, is God really there for you? And if so, does God see you, hear you, or even care about you? Perhaps you are walking through a quiet faith crisis. Or maybe you're wondering about your own identity. Who am I? Do I have enough courage and strength to make it through these 40 days of Lent? What am I doing with my life? Am I fulfilled? What the heck is going on with me? Maybe you're in a little bit of an identity crisis. And maybe you're neither of these, that your faith life is going smoother than it has before. You're feeling in tune with God and not only understanding who God is, but also who you are in God. This theme of Lent, rooted in whose and who you are, is for all of those moments. That we will investigate this over this season. And as we sat around together as ministers trying to think of a Lenten theme, we thought of the questions that we were harboring within our own souls and even the wonderings and ponderings, and wanted to be honest not only with ourselves but with God, that where we are in these moments. That's why our theme comes from a Black Franciscan nun, Thea Bowman, a teacher, singer, prophet, and faithful witness who often reminded people with joyful conviction that would chant over and over, remember, remember, remember who and whose you are. That's the invitation this Lent. And it was in the wilderness where Jesus learned who he was and whose he was, and maybe it will be in the wilderness, in this moment, in this time, in this Lent, in this season, that you will find answers to your questions and ponderings and wonderings too. But as we journey, I will continuously remind you of two things. The first is that you are God's beloved. You are God's beloved, and nothing that you can do will ever change that. Friends may go, families may disown you, jobs will stress you out and weary you and pressure you, but you will always be God's child. And number two is, no matter how much you question your own identity, you are somebody. Tell yourself every day as a mantra if you have to, but never forget it, because not everyone, in fact, has his or her or their somebodyness acknowledged equally. You are somebody. This past week, we lost the civil rights icon, Reverend Jesse Jackson. I had an opportunity to meet him when I was playing those crazy games on campus. I remember sitting with a small group at the Rainbow Push Coalition, listening as he encouraged us with those famed words, keep hope alive. Jackson was a Baptist minister and political activist who rose to national prominence working alongside Martin Luther King in the 1960s. He later founded Operation Push and then Rainbow Push Coalition to advance economic justice, civil rights, and political empowerment. And for decades, he advocated for racial equality, voting rights, education, and dignity for those pushed to the margins. And whatever one thought of his politics, this was much clearer. He centered people. He believed that any movement for justice had to begin by affirming personhood, the God-given dignity of every human being. One of the most powerful clips that were circulating this week is his 1972 appearance on Sesame Street. A young black man with a big afro and great medallion like Flavor Flav held on his chest, sitting on a brownstone stoop before a racially diverse group of children. They wiggled and fidgeted. They laughed. They moved. Some shouted confidently. Others whispered shyly, but the message was unmistakable. You are somebody. You are not becoming somebody someday, but you are somebody right now. And he led them into a chant, I am somebody. I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody. I may be young, but I am somebody. I may be on welfare, but I am somebody. I may be small, but I am somebody. I may have made mistakes, but I am somebody. My clothes are different. My face is different. My hair is different, but I am somebody. I am black. I am brown. I am white. I speak different languages, but I must be respected, protected, never rejected. I am somebody. I am God's child. This was his gift, reminding the smallest, most vulnerable among us that their worth was not earned, but it is given. Church, never forget that you are somebody, that you are a child of God. So I end with those famed words. Keep hope alive. Keep moving. Keep doing. Keep being. Keep living. Amen.